imaginary world of oneness, which is not what Upanishad is talking about. People will start flying with the idea of oneness. Upanishad is very, very, very rigorous. You can't just say, here let me see only atoms, here only see light. You will not be able to relate to the world. Because ultimately they are atoms, so why should I see in between things? You can't say that. Because in between there are things. There is a liver, you can't ignore it. There is a kidney, you can't ignore it. There is a lung, you can't ignore it. And your lung function is connected to everything, you can't ignore it. You can't only concentrate on the final. Concentrating on the final leads to whole big skip, which doesn't make you in touch with. If Ishvara is all of this, you can't just say, let me only concentrate on the final and let me skip all of this. That skipping will make you skip what? Skip so many realities which will not make you in touch with reality. Will not make you a nuanced person. Will not make you an intelligent person. So that means if there is that Devata function, you have to see it's there, it's governing you. What choice do you have but to what? Recognize it. So therefore, there is a function of sun which is a particular function which is different from what? Vignahara function. It is different. Now, but if you start thinking that there are two different things, that is also a problem. This is how we come to what? Multiple gods. Everybody thinks Hinduism is talking about multiple gods. Why? Because we talk about Ganesha, we talk about the sun, then we talk about the waters, then we talk about Lakshmi, then we talk about Saraswati. Through this practice, what are we doing? Absolutely. This is just as you are one form, it's undeniable that that form is different from this form. You can't skip that step.
All the stories about the gods, what is the reason that they came into being therefore?
So that means, see, that's what I'm saying, that there is a given function. You can't deny the presence of that function. So that means, let's say Saraswati. Let's take Saraswati. Saraswati is what? The goddess of intelligence, learning and intelligence. Now, every human mind has a given range of intelligence. But within that range, there are infinite variations. Infinite variations. What is governing that? There is a law. That law is what we call, we name it. What do we call it? Saraswati. Goddess Saraswati. Now, it is seeing the all intelligence from what? That given standpoint. What is that given standpoint? How much intelligence you are endowed with. So that means there is your cognitive, that also includes, it's multifaceted. Your emotional intelligence, your cognitive intelligence, your creative intelligence, and it's all different for everyone. And because it is different from everyone, you can't say, oh, the world is so unfair that I am given with so much and somebody else is given nothing. It's not unfair. You have to change that perception. And you have to say there is a law which governs. And therefore, you have to be thankful. This is how you begin to relate. If you just have one final idea of all knowledge, all power, you won't be able to relate. You have to relate. You have to understand and you have to be thankful. You have to have gratitude for that. You have to convert that feeling of this randomness, some randomness, unfairness. The whole thing has to shift at every level, and you have to see the presence of laws, infallible laws, which make everything what it is. That's what leads to conversion. That's how is that whole, your psyche gets what? Reoriented. Same thing with wealth. Same. Resources we can have, but they are not distributed equally. Not because they are unfair. There is what? Some law behind that. Some laws. So that means if I find myself in a position, please understand, that I have resources, instead of thinking, oh, the world is so unfair, why do I have resources and others don't have resources? You have to say, I must have done something noble. You have to convert. I must have done something noble in order for me to deserve these resources. Wonderful. Just one second. Now, but if I want to, the laws have given me resources, doesn't mean forever, for a length of time. So therefore, I need to, what, if I want to retain the privilege, and if I want to retain the resources, what is the way? Not to hoard, and not to kind of cheat others more, and to hoard more, but what? To help others. Only that way I will ensure, not only I will help others, but I will what? Ensure that I have the grace of Lakshmi. One has to convert. That conversion makes you operate in this world with gratitude, satisfaction, connection, and not with dissatisfaction, division, isolation. All the entire psyche has to change by recognizing the presence of divinity, but in all its different manifestations. If you do only one way and if you miss the other way, what will happen is you have a partial relationship.
In fact, I think these Saraswati and all this keeps reminding us of the resource and every time.
Absolutely. And that's why in Diwali, what do? We actually, so many people, I was actually quite surprised because even I didn't have that awareness, So sometimes I used to ask, so what are you doing for Diwali vacation? So they said, no, we are at home. So I said, so then I was like a little, so why are you at home? Hey, we have to be at home and welcome Lakshmi. They light the lamps and they keep the door open to what? Welcome Lakshmi. Lakshmi Pujan we do. We don't call it material. We call it one of the resources that is given to us, and there are laws which have given us these resources. If you yourself begin to think that I don't deserve these resources, or you yourself start calling it material and show no interest, it will go away very quickly. So, I used to, Satish,
yeah, I just wanted one clarification. See, children born out of defect, mentally challenged, disabilities, how does one explain that? Is it again karma?
Yeah, see, everything is connected. See, people are born, so that means that during the lifetime you don't see the cause and effect, right? Because it's not like during this lifetime person became deaf, then you can ask what happened. Here the person is born like that, right? So when the person is born like that, then there are past causes. Even, see, you don't take karma model, you take genetic model. Again, you look for, where do you search for causes?
Yeah.
Before, right?
Right.
So that is always, in fact, it is the case. For everything we do that.
How does one get over in it? suppose somebody is challenged in this for
Yeah.
some period of time, he,
Okay, that's a good question. So that means, that's a very good question. So that
What's the
means
question?
even if,
I'm saying
yeah,
that,
go ahead.
yeah, people who are, children who are mentally challenged, who have maybe some disease, autism,
Sure.
and we are saying that's a part of it, past karma. But going forward, how do they get over it? Is it going to be the same birth again and again, or at some period of time, it's going to have a different birth?
No, see Satish, as I told you, that even if the person has been given human birth, but because of some karma of the past, the person has not been given the full range that a human being enjoys. So that means human birth means there has to be what? Kartrutvam and Bhoktrutvam. And in Kartrutvam, there is mostly what? The Kartrutvam only works when you have a free will. Now imagine you are born with a severe disability. What has happened? Your Kartrutvam is what? Damaged. So that means even if you have come in a body where Kartrutvam is a possibility, for you it is denied. So that means you are living your life more as a bhokta. Bhokta means very little options. You have to go through that life. So now, when you go through that life, what has happened? You have not accumulated a new karma, which is a potential in a human body. You have only exhausted some karma. So when those karmas are exhausted, you are not condemned forever. In your karma account, there are lots and lots of karmas which will give you not the same birth, many other births. For this particular birth, you had to experience being only a bhokta.
And I guess it is also the person around, also
Around.
related to the
Exactly.
karma, who are also
And also
experiencing.
people who are related to you, they have to, if they have both Kartrutvam and Bhoktrutvam, then how they deal with you, that's a challenge.
And actually they often suffer more than the actual person.
Exactly.
It's part of the karma.
The caregiver can be, their karma is...
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. So it is also that person's karma, because it's not easy to be an autistic child, or so that means it's a karma of both. Absolutely.
I understood what you just said about the principles, how the world functions, how this universe functions, and how we have to relate to that, to not only be here and go to the highest, but see the intermediate levels.
Yes.
But coming back to his question a bit, seeing the sun as a devata is easy, or different principles, but that doesn't mean that if I'm not familiar with all these devatas and don't know the names or every different devata, I just relate to the principles or what we have in our culture, to see the principles and not having to learn all the devatas and all the names and all like this.
That's a good question. See, it's true that we are born in a culture where we have all these names. Yeah, that's true. Whereas you can be born in a culture where you don't have all these names, Varuna Devata and Surya Devata, and you don't have those. But I think you don't need, for example, the names, but you also have to see some principles. You may not call it Lakshmi, you may not give it a name Lakshmi, but when you have resources, you can have a healthy attitude towards your resources. That is non-negotiable. Whether you call it Lakshmi or not is cultural. But if you can't say, I don't want to pay attention to resources. Resources are a reality. You can't say, let me only connect to all knowledge and all power. You have to see the resource that you are given is one of the manifestation of that all knowledge and all power. So that means, and when you have intelligence, instead of thinking, I'm somebody who's great, you have to see that there is some principle, whether you call it Saraswati or not is a cultural thing. But you have to convert, otherwise what remains? Your arrogance also remains. That I'm intelligent. Hey, there needs a conversion. needs a conversion, that there are some laws which endow intelligence, and you have to be thankful, and you have to say that thank you for giving me that intelligence, because I didn't construct my mind. So you have to relate to that in some ways, whichever name you give.
You can even give a name in German. You can say the sun. You need not say Surya, you say the sun.
How do you say the sun in German?
Sun.
Actually, you don't have, just to recognize the fact that the water, the air, is
Exactly.
all part of a bigger scheme, and I need to
Absolutely.
be grateful towards it and
Absolutely.
appreciate and use it the way it is.
Absolutely.
This is
So,
The action is more
general
important.
principle thing of being thankfulness, saying thank you, what I have, what I get, what I...
see, that thankfulness, it's true. What my point is that the multifacetedness. That multifacetedness has to be recognized. Otherwise, what happens? We make every very intricate idea very simple. And by making the intricate idea simple, we lose what? The subtlety. You want to keep subtlety. You don't want to make something which is multifaceted only one-dimensional. That is the failure of the mind. The failure of the mind is that everything which is multifaceted, you want to just kind of make it simple into one little idea, and in that one little, when you collapse it into only one little idea, you are losing the nuances. The more your mind is nuanced, the more it is subtle, it is able to see, it is able to see both oneness and at the same time all the multiple differences. It has to hold both. Then only you operate from clarity.
Can I give a small example?
Yeah.
Just to, when you look at money as a piece of paper, you would feel that people, when they deal with money around, depending on the situation, they either are happy with it or sometimes they curse it also. When they give money to somebody and they feel they get cheated, they get angry with the money and throw it away. But if you see the divinity within it, you will always look at it as a method of prosperity, and you will always look at wherever it goes, you should multiply and prosper and give it that thing. So that aspect of money which is divine is not the piece of paper you are looking at, but the wealth and the prosperity around it. So the way you deal with it will change with that point.
Yeah.
In addition to Gabi, only the question just arises.
Yes.
It doesn't matter in which language
Yes.
we are praying.
Yes.
It doesn't matter.
Yes.
So it's not true that Sanskrit has a power in itself.
Of course it has a power in it.
So it's different.
Obviously it has a power in
So
it.
it's a difference if we pray in Sanskrit or
See, there are some Sanskrit, see, these are original things, and there are some chants which are very powerful. But that does not mean, see, it does not mean that you have to do these chants, right, in order. I mean, if you can learn it, wonderful, but it's not like only you, there are, in karma, there is always a choice. See, karma means you can do it one way, you can do it the other way, or you need not do it. Karma means, by definition, karma means there is a choice.
but what is the best choice?
So exactly.
Isn't it depending
So
on
that
where
means-
my heart is and where my
Yeah.
feelings are?
So, say, Carl, to put it the other way, there is no real, very categorical example for this. Now imagine, let's take two people. One is doing Sanskrit prayer, right, and hasn't understood at all what the person is chanting. Right? Now, there is another person who's doing prayer in Germany, but has taken time to understand the meaning and understanding the idea more accurately. You cannot say that the person who's chanting in Sanskrit is the one who's going to get more punya. That is not true. That means there are so many different
But
variables.
to say
So that means that there are so many variables. Things are complex. This is why you can't oversimplify things.
But my question was, if the person is praying in German, has understood, and prays in Sanskrit, it's much better.
Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to hear.
You know why it is much Because, I'll tell you why. Why it is much better. Because you have invested some additional effort
Yeah.
in what? Being sensitive to sound harmonies.
Mhm.
You have invested some additional effort in making those pronunciations right. So in karma, the rule is adhikasya adhikam phalam. The more effort there is, more result there is. That is why. Because even if you are born as an Indian, there is no guarantee that you will learn all these Sanskrit prayers. It has got nothing to do with nationality.
How many Indian?
How many
know
Indians
Vedic
make
chanting?
that effort?
Yeah.
So no matter where you are born, if you
Right here.
want to study Sanskrit, you have to make that effort. And for every effort that you make, there is a corresponding result. So that means you can be a bathroom singer and you can be a person who has gone and studied music for what a length of time with a teacher. You can't say the result will be the same for both. It is not possible.
We have in our center this city from the Bhagavad Gita pronounced by Swami Tadrupananda. And it's said in the beginning on German that it's the same, you don't have to understand the meaning. Just by repeating, it is a healthy, if you repeat quite right, yeah, it has a healthy, and so you can hear it in during car driving or just and then started to repeat without knowing. And this is for me a little bit,
Yeah,
No, I believe you can do
you
that.
can do it.
Like
Yeah.
even when I used to sing for
Yes.
a long time, I had no idea what I was singing, and it was just sort of entering my DNA, my whole consciousness.
But it doesn't give you knowledge.
Is this what
You
you
know?
were talking about japa, the way it works, right?
Yeah.
we are talking
See,
about
The japa concept which you said.
Japa.
Because the Sanskrit shloks and music and all have vibrations in them.
they have
So even
they
But
have
it does
sound
not increase
vibrations.
before
knowledge.
you reach the point
See,
where you understand
That's
that,
true.
that has an impact.
See, in fact, one of the striking example of this is, you know, in India, in South India, we have Veda Pathshalas. And in Veda Pathshalas, these boys, they are taught the chanting. Yeah? And I was also actually quite surprised. I asked Swamiji once, because when I came to him, I didn't even know that there was a Veda Pathshala, and I didn't know what they do in this Veda Pathshala. So he was telling me that they all learn how to chant, you know, so many different chants. So I said, Swamiji, and then they know a little bit of Sanskrit. So I said, Swamiji, do they learn the meaning of those chants? So he said, no, nobody teaches them the meaning of the chants. They only learn the chants. So, but you look at their faces. They are shining, bright faces. Shining. Their face is different from every other face. So that means by itself also it has tremendous benefits, because in addition to the cognitive capacity, there are sound harmonies,
The vibrations.
there are so many vibrations, there are so many phenomena in the universe. This is what I say, when you want to understand Ishvara, you have to understand what multifacetedness. If you only are concentrated on cognitive, and if you are ignoring everything else, you haven't captured Ishvara. Even though you can say all knowledge, all power, all knowledge, all power, it's just mechanical repetition. You don't see the presence unless you bring in the details. So therefore, to answer your question, even without the meaning, you can't say, oh, there is no benefit. There are benefits, because there are other dimensions in the universe. But now, to say the other way, but in addition to all of that, if they also had the meaning, that would be even better. That is the real position. So that means, see,
How Valmiki said Mara, 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 then
and then became Rama, Rama, Rama. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. So therefore, one has to be nuanced in one's opinions. We generally move from 0 to 100. We don't see anything in between. The minute you begin to see everything in between and all the differences and all the nuances, you become more and more in touch with Ishvara. Because Ishvara is not only all knowledge and all intelligence, it is all knowledge and all power. It is also Sun. It is also the principle which gives the resources. It also is the principle which gives the capacity to know. So that means you can't say I'm only thinking about one and I'm ignoring it all. You are missing a huge, you are actually settling for superficialness. Superficial. Even a Panwala can tell you Ishvara is everywhere. What's the big deal? So that means one has to be what? So now in the next set of verses, what is said, done is Rudra. What is Rudra?
Shiva.
Shiva. So now Shiva, so the two things have to be done. One is the specific function of Rudra, which is the specific function. What is the specific function of Rudra? Destruction. So that in that thing of Brahma, Vishnu and Maheshwara, divinity as a what? Destructive force in the universe. Now, when you take that, but if you think that where there is Rudra, there is only destructive force, then that is also wrong. You also have to see where there is destructive force, there is what? All of Ishvara. All of Ishvara. That is done.
That's why he dances.
Yeah, exactly.
Tandav is like
Exactly.
a creative destruction.
Absolutely. So this is the facility that we have in the vision. You see that form as and its function as distinct from other forms and functions, but in the same form you can also see what? The whole of Ishvara. Just as in you see your form, your limited power, your limited knowledge, and at the same time you see what? Ishvara, which is all knowledge and all power, which makes this given form come into manifestation. You are doing both. Same thing you do with divinity. Lakshmi is not what? Where there is Lakshmi as a force, there is also Ishvara, the all knowledge and all power, which makes that function of Lakshmi as what? That one which distributes the resources. Same thing, Rudra, destructive capacity, that is one manifestation, but behind that manifestation is all knowledge and all power, which blocks the other manifestations and what projects this manifestation, which is force of destruction. So Rudra is seen as both.
But even in destruction, there is manifestation.
Yeah. So that, exactly, that's why you can't.
There's
But
nothing
still,
got, yeah.
so that manifestation on one hand, you give it a name Brahmaji.
Okay.
Do you see what I mean? But even that in Brahmaji there is one particular thing which is this, and also the whole of Ishvara, all knowledge and all power. So that is the way through which in every object you see all knowledge and all power, starting from yourself. Then you can do a representation of one stone and superimpose on it what? The whole idea of Ishvara. Or you can take different devatas and you can see what? That function plus Ishvara. This is how you make the vision of Ishvara real for you. Otherwise it is just ideas. So that method is adopted that we will see.
I just had one question.
Yes.
See, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, are they the faces of Ishvara?
So that, as I said, see, all intelligence, when it is seen from the function of creating, the power to create every new moment, every new cell, every new form, that is what we call Brahma. all intelligence seen from that given function. So that means what is there is function, which we give the name what? Brahma, and then there is, which is not an independent thing, it is what? Part of, it is one of the manifestation of Ishvara. So you see Brahma and you see Ishvara both. You see what I mean? Then Vishnu is, the Rudra is the destructive force. That's why it is not Brahma. But where there is destructive force, there is also Ishvara.
Distinct functions.
Distinct functions.
Distinct
Exactly. Distinct manifestation. So manifestations are distinct, but the one common thing is Ishvara. That's how you have to see it. That's how you have to see it. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate